Hello everyone out there in internet jazz land. I am Jean, the jazz and blues audiophile, and I haven't been here for a long time. I think it's been over 10 months since my last video, and I apologize for that, but I was taken away on all kinds of other things the last couple of months. And we left off Benny Goodman. We're going to continue our survey of the recorded output of the late, great, the king of swing, one of the kings of clarinet jazz, Benny Goodman. So I'm back with you just in time, just before the holiday Christmas season. As I record this, we're just a few days before Christmas. And listen, we had left off Benny in 1955. We were into the 50s with Benny. We listened to some recordings that were done live at the Basin Street Club, and in 1955, and with a small group. It was from this collection, of course, of CDs that I'm going to play a couple of tunes from today again, because this is those famous Yale Library archives that were all the stuff that was left to them from Benny Goodman, the Benny Goodman estate. They have pretty much all his recordings, all his unissued recordings, private tapes, and etc., as I explained in previous programs. So, excuse me, we're going to take off from there. In the 50s, Benny is going to be very, very active. He continues to be very, very much active. He could have retired, you know, as early as 1950, 1948, 49. He could have said, okay, that's it. I've had enough with the music business. Now I'll retire and I'll just do what I like on the side. He liked to play some classical music with classical orchestras and quartets, and he played Mozart, and he played all kinds of stuff. That was his personal, you know, hobby on the side besides his jazz career. He could have stayed away from the jazz world. He could have just stayed away from the music world, period, and just come back, you know, just a couple of times a year and retired. He had been successful enough during the big band era so that he could do that. That was one of his options. But Benny, no, he's a musician at heart. And therefore, musicians, they never really retire. They keep on playing until they can't play no more. It was the same thing with Benny. So Benny in the 50s stayed very much active. In the 60s also, he's going to start slowing down only in the 70s when he's starting to get older. He's going to start spacing his appearances, his live appearances much more. But he's going to keep on going to Europe mostly. Europe is very, very tuned into jazz. It's a different kind of public. They have a different appreciation for the music over there. So he's going to keep on doing trips to Europe semi-frequently. Not as frequently, of course, as when he used to tour in the big band era and all that. But he's going to stay active and very much so in Europe. There's going to be a lot of recordings of him done overseas. As long as the recordings at home, as well as some recordings. A lot of these recordings are less known. You know, people know the Benny Goodman of the 30s and 40s, and after that, it's like, oh, he's gone. The big band era is over, so Benny, he's not around anymore. But no, he was very much around, very much putting out some excellent recordings, some excellent jazz material throughout the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And that's what I'd like to explore with you. So, 1958, also in the 50s, it was often called to television programs. He was often called. He would pass on talk shows. He would be the invited guest. He would play a couple of numbers in a small group setting. There was some TV specials, and in 1958 there was a NBC TV special called Swing into Spring. That's what the title of it was here. I have it in front of me. I have the info in front of me. Whoops, that was just about to fall down. Yeah, so this NBC special on April 9, 1958 on NBC TV it was called the Texaco Star Theater, sponsored by probably the Texaco Oil Company. And he was hosting this special that was featuring him along with a bunch of great jazz legends. Let me just tell you here who was in the Benny Goodman band during this special, and I'm going to play you the introduction song to this special as it was heard on television on that day or on that evening. He had on alto sax Jaime Schertzer, that used to play with him in the big band days. Walt Slavinsky. On tenor sax, he had the great Zoot Sims and Al Klink. On baritone sax, he had Sol Schlinger. Trumpet, he had none other than the great Doc Severinsen. Bernie Glow, Billy Butterfield was on trumpet. Buck Clayton also was on trumpet, so that's not just anybody. On trombone, he had the great legendary Herbie Green, Lou McGarity, and Eddie Burt. All some great trombonists from the period. On piano, he had none other than Hank Jones. On drums, he had Leroy Burns, and on guitar was the one and only Kenny Burrell. And the bass duties were done by Russ Saunders. And then when he performs in his smaller groups, he had the Benny Goodman Quintet. On vibraphone, he had none other than Red Norvo, the great Red Norvo. On bass, Orville Shaw. On piano, the one and only Teddy Wilson from the trio days. And on drums, Leroy Burns again. And of course, himself on the clarinet. Sorry about that. My tripod doesn't seem to be hanging on right here. Okay, so this is the Benny Goodman Quintet, and as vocalists, as guest vocalists on this TV special, he had Ella Fitzgerald, Joe Stafford, Ray Eberly, and the McGuire sisters. And this is what it sounded like when you heard the introduction to this show at the start. Here's what you heard right here.
Goodman is swinging here, it's delightful, it's delicious, it's lovely. Swing into spring. Harry James. Swing into spring. McGuire sisters. Well, Benny Martin, Benny Reed, and Benny summertime. He got little Goodman, love him all the time. Into spring. Joe Stafford. What a night this will be. It's a swinging jubilee. So let's make.
So anyway, that's the introduction of the television program, as you can hear, as it was typical pretty much of the 1950s TV programs of those days. And but I'm not just much of a vocal guy in the when it comes to big bands. I much prefer the instrumental. And of course, Benny was a master at instrumental productions and presentations in jazz. He was himself, of course, the great clarinetist that we know, and he had this excellent big band at all times with him. He always picked some really good musicians, and as I read you the list of the Benny Goodman Orchestra here, you can tell, I mean, all these guys are top-notch jazz musicians. They were not your humdrum average musician picked up on the street, you know. And here we're going to hear him play a little extract of Don't Be That Way here. Right now he's playing Sometimes I'm Happy, and it's going to seg you into a version of Don't Be That Way, which is just a really good, really energetic. You'll see that Benny has lost none of his energy. His band plays with the swing and the energy of the swing era. That's the wonderful thing about Benny Goodman. If you went to see him during the 50s, during the 60s, during the 70s, and he was fronting a big band, you were getting the same energy, the same drive as if you were during the big band era, seeing one of those great big bands. Here he is with Don't Be That Way. this whole TV special has been put out on record and on CD. Been reissued on CD a couple of years back, and it's on the famous. I don't know if you're familiar with this label, but it's a label that specializes in TV or cinema-related jazz recordings, and they're called Sandy Hook Records. I had a couple of those records back in my vinyl recording days, and they specialized in that kind of stuff. So this whole program, Swing Into Spring, as heard on the Texas Star Theater show of April 9, 1958 on NBC TV, has been put out on record and on CD. It's available from Sandy Hook Records. It's the Sandy Hook release number 57 here, according to what the info on the CD, on the back of the CD. So it's out there. Is it readily available? I don't know. This is probably out of print, has been out of print for some time. But, you know, if you go into used record stores, you check on eBay, you check on the internet, different places, it might be able to, you might be able to find this. Here's a performance with this quintet playing in the background. So it gives you a little bit of idea of the action that Benny was into in the 50s. He was busy making television appearances. He was busy making club appearances. He was all over the place still. And don't forget, he had the success in 1955 of that release, The Benny Goodman Story. So in the 50s, he was riding pretty much on the success of that. And he was still very much in vogue. You know, the guys that were fans during the big band era kept on following him. So he had a certain following of people that were maybe a little older than the younger crowd. The younger crowd was, of course, into rock and roll and stuff like that. But the older generation, the people of his generation and younger that discovered him during the 30s, they were still following him around. So he had a pretty good popularity during the 50s. Enjoys still a very good popularity towards a large part of the public. Everybody knew who Benny Goodman was. Even when he came on TV, on talk shows, people said Benny Goodman. You know, in each household, there was people who knew who Benny Goodman was. He had a reputation, and he was known. Now, the other CD I want you to hear, the other stuff I want you to hear is that in 1958, Benny's also, that same year, is going to start to be going on international tours more and more. He's going to go on international tours in Europe, all kinds of parts of the world. It's going to culminate in a very, very historic tour in 1962 where he's going to be called by the State Department to go to Russia. He's going to be, I think, the first jazz big band to go to Russia behind the Iron Curtain. And God knows at that time it's the Cold War. We're still in the midst of the Cold War. It's really cold. It's very cold. It's strongly cold. And Benny is going to be one of those guys that's going to be sent, one of the first jazzmen, I think, sent by the State Department to go and play some jazz for the Soviets behind the Iron Curtain. So it's going to be very important for him. It's going to be something he's going to take very seriously, and he's going to play some seriously good jazz for those Russian people and show them what it's all about, show them what swing's all about, what big band swing and big band jazz is all about, and also some small group stuff, because he always had those parts where he would play with small groups, of course. So that we're going to hear that later on in the program. It's not going to be right now. Right now, what I want you to hear is in 1958, he was going to be called at the to the Brussels World Fair, International World Fair. So these International World Fairs were a yearly thing. There was people, countries were represented from all around the world. It was just a big gathering of nations and showing off a little bit about their country, announcing themselves, telling the world what they're all about. You know, we had the same thing in 1967 here in Canada with Expo 67. Well, this is Brussels 58. It's the same idea. It's a World's Fair, different pavilions representing different countries. And so Benny's going to be there representing the USA, representing the music of the USA, the contribution of the United States of America to the great musical world art, which was jazz. Benny's going to be called to go and represent them. And this has been a good part of this this Live in Brussels was recorded, of course, by and it's been put out on the sorry, not this one, this CD right here. This was volume 3 on a 5 CD set called the Yale Musical Archives, CD set I bought years ago. It's a 6 CD set actually, but comprised of 5 CD. One's a double CD. And this one is the one called Big Band in Europe. And we've got essentially a lot of performances that he did at the Brussels World Fair that year, 1958, when we went there at the American Pavilion representing the USA. There are some tracks in here, incredible tracks. It's wonderful. He's got an excellent big band. Let me tell you here, I'm just going to cue this up here because I got to change my my player here behind and put it on CD so that I'm playing the right thing. Yeah, okay. So now what I want to play you is a couple of extracts from this great performance in Brussels. And listen to the band he brought with him in Brussels. This is quite a remarkable gang of musicians again. In the big band, he had John Frost, Taft Jordan, E.V. Perry, Billy Hodges were on trumpet. He had Ernie Morrow, Al Block on alto saxes. Zoot Sims and Selden Powell were on the tenor saxes. Gene Allen was on baritone sax. Rex Peer, Willie Dennis, and Vernon Brown were on the trombones. Vernon Brown had been playing with him since the 30s. Roland Hanna, the excellent Roland Hanna on piano, Billy Bauer on guitar, Arvil Shaw on bass, and Roy Burns on drums, the same Roy Burns we heard here in the television special. So this was something else. This was quite a big band, and from that big band group, he formed a nonet, an octet, and a quintet. So he performed in smaller groups also throughout the shows that he was given there at the Brussels World Fair exhibition pavilion that he was occupying. So let's hear his signature tune here from the start. Let's Dance is, of course, his signature tune at the Brussels World Fair. Yeah, classic stuff from Benny. But the thing that's going to happen is during this fair, he's going to play the heck out of his swing, a lot of his swing classics, some of the greats. He's going to do Bugle Call Rag next here. I've got that queued up. Going to do On the Sunny Side of the Street, Blue Skies, Sometimes I'm Happy, I'm Coming Virginia, a whole bunch of old numbers, you know, from the 30s, but also some more recent ones. He's going to do some medleys. He's going to do all kinds of stuff, and then he's going to do one, and I'm going to let you hear an extract of this. This is amazing. He got the great blues shouter Jimmy Rushing to come on tour with him in Brussels, and he's going to do with Jimmy a thing called Brussels Blues. I'm going to have to play you the whole thing. This is a swinging thing like you won't believe, and Betty swings a clarinet solo. He's pushed down by Jimmy Rushing that's telling him, you know, go Benny, go, you know, play Benny, play. You know, Benny Goodman's gonna swing if he doesn't change his mind. That's what he says just before Benny goes out into this fantastic clarinet solo, and the whole thing rocks, just rocks your socks right off with the great blues shouter Jimmy Rushing and this great band backing Benny and Benny himself. I'm gonna let you hear that, but first I'll let you hear a little extract of the classic Bugle Call Rag, Benny Goodman, again, live in Brussels. Listen to this. Zeus in. Here comes Benny. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Benny in fine form, as you could hear from his clarinet solo, had lost none of his fluidity on the clarinet, just this fluid, flowing, easy-going clarinet style. There's Jimmy Rushing singing on the sunny side of the street. It's a great, great album, and it's available. Listen, it's been issued here. Part of it has been issued here on this, of course, the Yale Archives release, the collection of CDs I talked about in previous programs. But it's also available independently of this set as the Live in Brussels album. There's been several editions. There have been some European editions. I knew I had one record of it way back in my vinyl collecting days. So it's been edited also on record as a volume 1 and a volume 2. Two separate volumes on vinyl record, probably on CD the same way, volume 1, volume 2, or maybe they bundle up the 2 volumes in a 1 CD set. But that is readily available, not too hard to, shouldn't be too hard to find. Has been reissued quite a few times over the years. So Benny Goodman live at the World Exhibitions of Brussels 1958. You should be able to find that if you want to hear some great, great big band jazz and just some overall great playing by Benny. This is a phenomenal, fantastic performance of the 50s by Benny, showing that he was in top form, had lost none of his swing. And to prove to you that he lost none of his swing, if there need be more proof, I'm going to play you track number 19 on this CD here, which has him rocking it out with the great blues shouter Jimmy Rushing. And just listen to this. This is pure rock and swing. This is absolutely incredible. Here it is. It's called Brussels Blues with the great Jimmy Rushing. Whoops, sorry, that's the wrong track. Oh no, that was the right track, sorry. Yeah, that's it. So here we go. This is called Brussels Blues, featuring the great Jimmy Rushing, and a whopping solo by Benny Goodman.
I may be wrong, but I won't be wrong always. And I may be wrong, but I won't be wrong always. You go along with me, baby, one of these old rainy days. Sometimes I wonder, baby, why don't you write to me? Sometimes I wonder, baby, why don't you write?
Why don't you write to me? Write me your comments down below.
feet.
And you too.
Love to hear my baby call my name. Love to hear my baby call my name. Call so easy and so doggone plain. Baby, what's on your mind? Baby, what's on your mind? You keep me bothered and worried all the time. Then I know I build up from the ground. Then I know I build up from the ground. Wonderful things you make your love come down. Thought I would run, but I believe I'll telephone. Thought I would run, but I believe I'll telephone. You don't better look for your baby home. Yes, baby, I know. Yes, baby, I know. Yes, baby, I know. Sometimes I wonder, baby, why don't you write to me? Sometimes I wonder, baby, why don't you write to me? Felt me real bad, but I did to me. I'm home in the country and I can't keep her off my mind. I'm home in the country and I can't keep her off my mind. Every time I think of her, I just can't keep from crying. Sorry, babe, sorry to my heart. Sorry, babe, sorry to my heart. Been together so long and now we've got to part. Bye, bye, baby, bye. Bye, 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 baby, bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Baby, bye.
This is not the tune I wanted to play. This is not the version. I'm gonna find it. Hang on a second. I'll be right back. This is not the version I was looking for with the solo by Benny that I was looking for, but I'm gonna just pause this video and come back with the right version. Still very good nevertheless. The great Jimmy Russian. This is another version of Brussels Blues, but there's another one, and I'm gonna come up with it in give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Hang on a second, just 1 minute.